All right. Welcome back, and so excited to go over the pranayama section with everybody. So, if you would not mind, let's jump right into our teachables and go to the pranayama section, which is going to be in your module C, module 2, the subtle body. We go into pranayama, and pranayama is where we are moving and having what we basically are known as breath control is what it is. Pranayama is breath control, and retaining prana is keeping the prana within the body. So a yogi is one that keeps the prana within the body, the life force energy from within. You'll see here Yoga Sutra 2.46. Once one has achieved a stable and relaxed seat, one should work with the movement of inhalation and exhalation until that movement can be controlled and paused. And this is pranayama. And so we're going to introduce this class with some movement based breathing. And the movement based breathing, or those breath work, we have Ujjayi breath. But before Ujjayi, we have a 3-part breath. So we have Dirga, 3-part breath. And this is where we inhale, pause, exhale, pause. So even though it's known as 3-part, I personally call it 4-part breath because you have those 2 pauses in between. So it's what I like to say, receiving the nectar between the poses, or receiving the nectar between the breath. So either or is how I like to use that, receiving the nectar, because then you can really sit with the breath in between and really pause. And as you sit in presence and you're breathing, the intention of Dirga breath is basically to help you ground and settle and root. So it's one of the breath works that we use to ground with the root chakra. And then we travel up those nadi channels, which is the flow of energy. The nadi channels are the flow of energy, and they're the ones that govern how this energy moves. And as we utilize prana or pranayama, that helps us to move prana, which would be now introducing us into the pranamaya kosha, which we learned in the beginning. So see how everything comes back to full circle. It all comes back to the breath. And of course, the 8 limbs of yoga are a big part of all of this. So the prana portion of pranayama and pranayama of the 8 limbs of yoga is right where you are right now. And so let's go into the next one. So we have Dirga, Ujjayi breathing. And Ujjayi breathing also can graduate into another one that is a little more intense because it has breath retention. So we go into that more in the 300-hour training. And then we shift up into what is known as breath of fire, or Kapalabhāti. So if you notice how the pranayams are aligned, it's also aligned with the chakra system and how we're breathing. So we stoking the fire, and it's that really active exhale through the nose and stoking the pumping of the fire of your belly. And so that is bringing us into Kapalabhāti, which is also known as our skull shining breath. We journey up into the heart space or into the heart chakra, but we also have a few more air type of breath works that are a lot more intense as we travel up. So this is really getting us into transcendental meditation or transcendence. And so when we get into Bellows breath, which is a lot of pumping, so you are either kind of like a headbanger and you're like bringing your head down towards the ground and exhaling like out, inhale, exhale. Okay, so that's Bellows breath. There's Murchi, and then there's Palvini, where we're so we're really cultivating quite a bit of energy as we're moving. This is something you'll see a lot in Kundalini exercises as well. So we're stoking the fire. We're creating Bellows breath, which is air, a lot of air in this particular pranayama, which again correlates back to the heart chakra, anahat. Anahata is the name of the heart chakra, and the literal translation means unstuck. And so breath work, the pranayama, moves blockages. It literally removes them when we're doing breath work, and a lot of more of this skull shining type of work. As we journey upward, we're going to continue moving the energy upward. And so you're going to start to visit Nadi Shodhana, alternate nasal breathing, and Śītalī breath. So Śītalī breath is being more of a cooling breath. So just take kind of a note here how now we went from that really grounding breath, that 3-part breathing. We're really rooted. We've got our little Lam mantra in our head and we're totally grounded. We're moving up into this more fluid breath work. So we're allowing the belly to rise and the belly to fall and kind of moving like a wave of energy in that sacral chakra when we introduce Ujjayi breathing. And this is where really intense creativity moving through this lower portion, this lower chakra. Then as we journey up, we're in Kapalabhāti. So we're stoking the fire. We're getting our apana, all the waste is being moved, it's being digested, it's being processed. And that correlates back to that fire element with that Manipura chakra. And now we're traveling up and we're going into our heart space and we're feeling the feelings. We're going through all the emotions. And sometimes it's really that ugly boohoo cry that we go through, or it could be a really painful experience in the heart. So we have to how to breath it out. How to breath it out. We really invite a lot of the air. We allow a lot of letting go and a lot of releasing in the heart chakra. And then we start to bring it down a little bit and we start to cool it down a little bit now. So now we're starting to come into a more calming experience, more calming environment. And as we do that, we start to go up into our sound chakra. And so we come into the voice and we come into the throat. So you hear so it's the sound chakra. And then the sound that we make here is the Śītalī sound. So it's the with the little curling of the tongue and the in, right? So in and out. And then we bring our awareness up into the space of the third eye chakra with the breath that journeys up into consciousness, because now we're awakening into pure consciousness. And it's still a cooling type of a breath. And so here we're going to invite more of a deep transcendent breath known as Nadi Shodhana. And Nadi Shodhana typically utilizes a mudra with it. And that mudra is known as Vishnu mudra. Vishnu mudra is taking your hand, kind of like you're going to say hi to me. And you're going to take your pointer finger and your middle finger down. And your pinky finger and your ring finger are going to remain, and your thumb. So it's kind of like a surf's up, dude, but just we want to add one more finger to that surf's up, dude. And so we're going to take this mudra and we cover our face and we always want to plug, actually, we always want to start with we plug the right nostril, and you're going to start with the left nostril. Inhaling through the left, plugging the left, exhaling through the right. Inhaling through the right, exhaling through the left. Now, Nadi Shodhana does graduate into Alanoma Valoma. And Aloma Voloma is the breath retention, or what we call kumbhak, at the very top. And so when we do the Nadi Shodhana, the only difference between Nadi Shodhana and Aloma Voloma is the breath retention. And we can practice it right now. So you come into the Vishnu Mudra, cover the right nostril, inhale through the left, plug the left, exhale through the right. Basic Nadi Shodhana. Inhale through the right, plug the right, exhale left. Stay. Now we're going to invite Analoma Voloma. It's like a tongue twister. Inhale, inhale through the left nostril, and then pause. Retain. Exhale through the right. Excellent. Inhale through the right. Retain. Suck the belly button up in it. Exhale left. And release. You typically want to do that about 54 times. And so this practice here, the Nadi Shodhana and the alternate nasal breathing, now precursor to it, anyone pregnant, anyone that has anxiety, trauma, really high sensitivity to trauma, this might not be the breath for you, or this might be the breath to be teaching. And the reason I say that is because the breath retention, anoloma voloma, may trigger any type of trauma infused experiences, lots of anxiety. It really is a triggering breath. So it really fires you up, but it also cools you down. But it's also a gateway to a transcendent meditation. So that's why I always like to preface the Analoma Voloma, because it's such a powerful breath work technique. And it does come with a lot of power behind it, depending on where you want to go and how you want to heal. So it's something to be mindful of. And then afterward, you're going to bring the attention up towards the crown chakra. So you're in Sarasrara chakra. And in this space here is where we come into Brahmari breath. And Brahmari breath is the breath of the bumblebee. I love this breath. It's so much fun because it's one of the most fun breaths. I almost wanted to say funnest, the funnerest, the most funnest breaths out there, which you can actually do with children, because children are the most pure of consciousness and they absolutely love anything that has to do with little animals. And so we use yoni mudra for bumblebee breath. And I always like to teach it laying down on your back. And so you can lay down on your back to do this one. You can stay seated up here with me, but you're going to take your hands, your whole hand is going to cover your face, the whole hand. So you're going to cover your eyes with your two main fingers, and then your middle finger is going to come right underneath your nose. I think that's middle finger, yeah. And then you're going to take your pinky finger underneath your chin, okay? And then you're going to take your thumbs and you're going to plug them into your ears. So what we're doing here is we're withdrawing ourselves from the senses. And if you remember, this would be known as pratyahara, the withdrawal from the senses. And so we come into the eighth, which is pureness with all one and pure consciousness, like beyond conscious sound, right? The element is space. And here you're going to inhale, but the exhale is a high frequency hum. So it's like this. And once you remove the hands and you open your eyes slowly after doing that breath, it's another very powerful breath. Even in just those three, I already feel completely different. So it's really powerful to try each and every one of the different pranayamas and give yourself permission to explore each one. I always like to use the auspicious numbers of anywhere between 9 rounds, uh, 27 rounds, and 54 rounds are always my favorite to do, because it just gives just the good enough amount of time for the student to embody the experience of the pranayama and yourself. Okay, so we discussed the 8 different pranayams, and then I also want to kind of quickly go over Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha, and Jaladhara Bandha. Mula Bandha, or I like to say Muladhara, but Mula Bandha is the base bandha. It is located right along the sexual organs and right where the root chakra begins. And then we pull ourselves up into Uddiyana Bandha, which is the space in the solar plexus. And then we come up into the heart or throat area, which is Jalandhara Bandha. I always remember Jalandhara Bandha because of the jawline. And then Uddiyana Bandha, I think of yummies in my tummies. And then Mula Bandha, I think of Muladhara. So I think of that root chakra, I think of rooting, which is a great way to remember the 3 great bandhas. And they're known not just as the Tetra bandhas, but they're also known as the Maha Bandha. Maha meaning great in Sanskrit. So these are your 3 that I'd like for you to just kind of review and go over on your own time. And then we kind of journey up into what is known as the nadis. And so I know we've been playing around with the nadis for quite some time and talking about them. We go over them quite extensively in the chakra system because they actually are part of governing these chakras, and they are also part of governing the gunas. They are also part of the granthis. So they play a significant role in the center alignment of our chakra system, as well as with the chakras that align our hands. And so you have a Kundalini awakening power chart here in front of you in this figure, and the figure has the chakras in their hand and their toes, and then it also shows you the dantian, the inverted triangle towards the bottom, going into the root chakra with the 1,000 petal lotus at the very top. You'll see the sun and the moon, which represents hatha, sun and moon, hatha yoga, hatha. And you'll also see all of the Sanskrit names. You'll actually see the sixth chakra name written out how it's supposed to be sounded. I know I paused there, right? Because I want you to take that in. If you look at it, it's spelled Agnya, okay? And we spell it Ajn with the nya on top, a, agnya. So agnya is they literally spelled it out for you on how to pronounce it. So it's a nice little cheat sheet just to kind of get you familiar with how to say the chakra names. If you go up, you'll see here, I really love it because you'll see up at the very top Sarashtrara chakra, how we pronounce Sarashrara chakra. They have it written out for you to pronounce it exactly how you hear it. Okay. Um, Here they call the Muladhara chakra Nabhi chakra from the Kundalini tradition. However, we call it in the yogic lineage tradition of Hatha Yoga, we call it Manipura chakra. And it's also pretty much known all over the world as Manipura chakra. So I would just stick with that as to not get confused. Okay. Beneath, you will see Ida and Pingala and Sushumna more explained and in depth. So you'll notice here it's Ida is associated with the tamas guna, the guna of introspection and feeling. Pingala is associated with the rajastic guna, which is very expressive, very opening. And we talked about this back when we were talking about Arahawan and Erawan. We talked about the gunas back then. So we're kind of revisiting them again now. And then what do you think Sushumna Nadi would be? It would be the balance between the two, the harmony between the two gunas, the other two gunas. So it would be the sattvic guna, the one that brings everything into peace and harmony. Sattva guna. Okay. Underneath, you'll see all of the different breath retention or the breath work that we just went over. You'll see Kapalabhāti is at the very end. It actually should be the third one, and then the others proceeding afterwards. So just giving you a sense of clarity for that. I'll go back and correct that myself here for you all. And and then there's other breathing techniques that we work with. We work with Om, we work with Hum, we work with we work with the Bija sound mudras through that. So a lot of the time, some of the pranayama has a lot to do with sound. And we're going to talk about that in our next video, how pranayama and sound begin to weave into this tantric experience, which is kind of the lineage that we're really harboring and really manifesting here is a lot of the tantric experiences and exploration. Your breath, your senses, your eyes, everything can become a portal to awakening and an expression of the divine current in you. And that is a beautiful quote from Raja Chaudhry. And so I just wanted to take a moment and go over, let's see, we have our 3-part breath. We went over that. And there's Analoma Viloma. And then I wanted to take a moment to go over some of these questions that we have here. And if I missed anything in this quick review. So we talked about that prana, a yogi is one whose prana is all within the body. We talked about prana prepares us for the stillness of meditation and it draws us inward. So it prepares us to meditate. Prana is what we call life force energy. Apana is the waste that processes through the prana. The goal is to reduce apana. So the goal is to reduce this fire in our belly so that we can bring more prana into the belly. If we have overactive third chakra and it's burning everything up, then we're not retaining a lot of that life force energy. The Agni is also known as fire in the body, and breath work moves blockages. Yes, 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 yes. Breath work moves blockages. Know that, know that, know that. Kumbhak is the breath retention, which we just discovered. And then we also discovered that the nadi channels is Ida Pingala and Sushumna Nadi, and they are the ones that govern the channel energy through the body, how the breath flows. Okay. You're going to want to know those 8 different techniques so that you can start to practice them and you can start to lead us through as we journey with each other in the weeks to come. So that way, each time that we're together, you're leading a pranayama, and it can be a different pranayama. It can be a progress, or you can start from the progressive to regressive. So it really is up to you on how you would like to share that. As we go to the second homework review, which is just followed afterward, it not only kind of reviews the ones from above, but then it also kind of offers you a little bit more as to what are the bandhas? And we talked about that being Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha, and Jalandhara Bandha. And where do they reside? They're going to be residing in Mula Bandha resides at the very, very base. We have Uddiyana Bandha residing in the belly, and Jalandhara Bandha resides in the throat. And then we talk about um, Mahabandha is the great bandha. The mudras, you want to know the mudras that we use for alternate nasal breathing. Okay, we have our surf subdued, and you're going to also want to know the mudra for the yoni mudra for Brahmari. Okay, so know that as you're getting ready and preparing to teach. And a bonus question, and this actually stems from the yoga of sound. So, raga. So, raga yoga, the Rajasic personality is very expressive, and expression is a form of song. And so, in song, we have a scale in the Hindi tradition, and it's the Sari Gama Padani. And you hear this a lot in kirtan. They always start with Saragari Padani. So they get everybody's voices ready for the music because it's a very different scale to sing on. And so it's also kind of like de do la re do re mi fa sol la ti do. So it in Hindi it's just Sarigama Padani, and then they repeat it backwards. And this stimulates the entire parasympathetic nervous system. It stimulates the entire system of the body. It gets you prepared for mantra. It gets you prepared to channel. It gets you open to grace. It's just one of the ways to embody the practice through sound. So I hope that helps. Well, that is the review for our pranayama portion. I want you to go back through and practice, practice, practice. Do as much as you can. Get prepared to teach each time that we meet. Teach me, teach each other, teach your friends, teach your family. What you're teaching is going to be retaining. So the more you teach, the more you retain, and the more you retain, the better you are adding to your yoga teacher arsenal. So I'll see you in our next module. Namaste.